Well sheltered, the culturally most interesting historic city in Brazil nestles in a calm bay alongside the Atlantic Ocean. Salvador da Bahia, former capital of the Portuguese colonies. Amerigo's Vespucci was the first to discover this bay that was flanked by dense vegetation, which on the first day of November 1501 was named All Hallows Bay. Some years later, Captain Diogo Alvares was shipwrecked close to the coast. The indigenous people welcomed him, and he subsequently married the chief's daughter. In 1549, more than 1,000 Europeans, among them Captain Tomé De Souza, founded a town and colony here. Up until 1763, Salvador da Bahia was the capital of Brazil, and its wealth was derived from tobacco, sugarcane, and cocoa. It was only later that the profitable slave trade began here. The Franciscan Order commenced with the religious education of the Tupinamba Indians. And in addition to the feudal civic houses, a splendid monastery and church were built. Ordem Primeira de São Francisco was one of the most splendid Baroque complexes in Brazil. Its arcades are particularly impressive as they possess a contemplative atmosphere, with walls covered with azulejos. The blue shining tiles were designed in the 18th century by Bartolomeu Antunes de Jesus from Lisbon. The allegorical engravings of Flemish painter Otto van Veen served as their model. The great wealth of the local people is indicated inside the church. Artists were ordered to decorate the interior ornately. In contrast, the exterior is quite modest. Golden framed carvings, gilded sculptures, and Baroque angels in abundance. The interior is breathtaking. The splendidly decorated interior is crowned by a wonderful wooden ceiling and framed by fine walls. On the Praça da Sé, the center of the colonial old town of Pelourinho, the Jesuit order built a large cathedral in the 17th century. In numerous niches, the Baroque facade containing figures of various saints is made of Portuguese lioth, a type of limestone. The walls and columns in the interior are comprised of light marble. The main altar is carved of wood and covered with an abundance of gold leaf. Jesuit Father Antonio Viqueira is said to have spoken against the enslavement of the people. His fiery speeches against slavery were not popular with the Inquisition, so he was imprisoned. The Praça da Sé unites both modern and historic elements around a fountain. From here, there's a good view of the harbour and market building. Since 1930, the 72-metre-high elevator, Elevador La Sada, has connected the Baroque upper part of the town with the lower part. The old city hall indicates the former wealth of the sugar barons who once ruled here. They lived in extreme luxury and decadence. Narrow alleys and fine buildings connect the squares. The Igreja Nossa Senhora do Rosário dos Pretos was built by slaves in the 18th century according to Afro-Brazilian design. The clergy tolerated the work of the slaves as long as they converted to Christianity and were baptized as soon as they arrived here. In the old town, there's nothing to indicate the slave markets of old, and the degrading treatment suffered by both captive Africans and the local Indians. In the 18th century, the plantation owners flaunted their wealth and decorated their female slaves with precious jewellery. At the end of the 18th century, plague and yellow fever spread within the town's narrow alleys, and the rich moved to the suburbs. Pelourinho became the living quarters of labourers, merchants and craftsmen. The buildings eventually fell into decay and have since been renovated with the help of UNESCO. The mighty complex Forte Santo Antonio de Barra and its round lighthouse reaches into the Atlantic like a small peninsula. The prosperous city and busy harbour had to be protected from pirates. We turn again to the slaves. Despite being baptized, they remained faithful to their African culture. Their ethnic faith, Macumba, ordained that each person has their own orija that protects them throughout life. Salvador is also famous for its beaches. The Praia Ribeira has lots of space for bathing, and the harbour contains fishing boats and sailing yachts. Due to this splendid location, many come here to relax. And of course, it's also the town of the saints. From the beach, there's a view of a well-known pilgrim's church that towers imposingly from above, the Igreja do Bonfim. Here it is said that Brazil joins with Africa, and the religions melt as one. Indeed, Salvador da Bahia is a melting pot of various cultures, a fine town of the former white colonial masters, and a living space for African gods.